It does suck for folks that are at major record labels because instead of innovating, they've always just tried to protect and guard. I think independent artists has been the exact opposite. Like, we've had to innovate, we've had to be creative, we've had to maneuver differently. Z from Audio Mac had a tweet. He says, morale across the record industry is very low right now. The widespread layoffs not only displace hundreds of passionate, hardworking employees, but also burden those who remain to the point that many are just going through the motions. It's a bad situation.
I always worried about my people who work for these labels because I feel like this has been happening a long time. I remember when I worked in radio, the turnover was insane when it came to the radio reps. I'm sure you've dealt with that too, where it's like sometimes they switch jobs, sometimes they go independent, sometimes they just, like next thing you know, I'm getting a new contact from someone else. Oh, I'm the new rep for this. And then a month later, it's a new rep and then a new rep. So I always looked at what I'm doing as an artist in the music business is tough. But at the end of the day, I can't fire myself. I do also wonder if this is trickling down to the rest of us. It feels like morale is just low in general right now. But there's a lot going on in the world.
Oh, I mean, if you're talking about just in the world, for sure. I'm talking about just, I think that when people say things like this, because I don't feel it in the independent space at all, to be honest. Like, my morale isn't low. I think this can apply. I think it makes sense if it applies to major record labels because of the recent layoffs and maybe the additional burden, more work, that's left for the people that, had to take on more work because of layoffs. But I don't feel it, nor do I see it like directly in my day to day. And I also think that when things are like that, it shouldn't make independent artists happy, but it should give you energy because I think it's a time right now to really like put your foot on the gas. Because I think it's still going to be hard as shit, but it creates a little bit more of an opportunity for you to kind of make some progress. So when I saw that, I was like, man, it does suck for folks that are at major record labels because, instead of innovating, they've always just tried to protect and guard. And at the end of the day, I think that's ultimately what the problem is with major record labels. The lack of innovation and just trying to hold on to something and keep things the same. So, and I think independent artists has been the exact opposite. Like, we've had to innovate, we've had to be creative, we've had to maneuver differently. So I think we're just more built for how times are changing and how technology is changing. So my morale's not low at all, even though this morning it may sound like it. It's not like, so I'm not happy, but for people getting laid off, but I definitely see some great times ahead in the next couple of years.
Dame said, that ain't me. Don't put that on me. Okay. Dame said, we hiring over here at Too Lost. I mean, it's true. Yeah, y'all getting money over there. Shout out to Too Lost. Shout out to the people who are innovating right now. I don't want to belittle the struggle either whatsoever, but I think it's hard right now because music is getting hit with the wave of major label layoffs, but also kind of surviving or still riding the wave of tech shifting. And I'm not even talking about necessarily like Web3 facing tech companies. I guess they're all on that wave, but because that happened a lot in like 21, 22, really, I guess like 22, early 23. But I think if you're looking for a company to work for, especially when you have a higher level of clearance, or like you've been working on you're like mid-tier executive and upper level executive in the music industry, I do see it probably being a little bit more difficult for you to have morale in this moment, because I saw some big people get laid off from UMG that really actually surprised me, because I thought they were going to lay off all the lower down people and then just put more work on the higher ups. And I saw them cutting at every level. So I could see it being really tough. I think personally for me, I feel like I don't even really work in the music industry anymore. I feel like I work like music adjacent. I do work in the music industry because like we podcast here, but I think I started seeing the shift and experiencing the frustration. As a manager is always experiencing to be the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of low morale, and that's something that I was like determined to get out of. And once I did, for I'd say about 6 months, at the end of 2022, top of 2023, I was looking for a job in the music industry, thinking like my translatable skills would work really well. The issue was that I was so frustrated by all the feedback that I got from interviewing or lack thereof that I was like, I don't want to do this, because everything that I do is on you. Like every place that I go is on you. If you want to hire me or if you want to let me do whatever, and so, I'm not saying that everybody has to be an entrepreneur, but I've seen a lot of, especially women, minority women and non-binary people that I rock with, they have gone into the nonprofit space around music. They've gone into, again, music adjacent companies that service the music industry, organizations that have further roots than just like current music trends. So this is not discouragement or encouragement. I'm just saying I'm seeing the trend with a lot of really high level executives moving into music adjacent things. Like if you have this expertise and you can translate it, or you have relationships that are just outside of the music industry, I think the shift is happening in a way that people are tired of being messed with, especially when they've contributed so much. I think that was kind of my frustration as a manager. So I took my translatable skills and I'm like building a lot of things in Austin, more event facing things. I get paid to produce a lot of events and consult on events or consult on growth strategy. That's like where I've seen a lot of uptick in the last year in general. So for me, it's been tough to see how the landscape of music is changing, but it hasn't been surprising. I think that I was aware of it before most people because I never had the security of like a corporate level job in the industry. So I'm sorry that people are feeling low morale. I'm kind of in the same boat with Dame. Like I'm not in that place, but I'm also in a place that it's like, well, what does the next step of the industry look like? Where does the new talent go and what does the new talent do? I think a lot of people comment on how millennials and now even Gen Z are so quick to grab so many jobs, and kind of like, even Dame was tweeting about it, like like Gen Z, this isn't a millennial thing, but like Gen Z don't work on weekends and they don't spend extra time in the office. I think part of it is that they very much prioritize their own time. But I also think part of it is a lot of them are like, I'm not giving you everything because you're not giving me everything. So I'm going to go take here. I'm going to take here. And I feel like I see a lot of people getting in where they fit in. So they have this type of gig over here and they have this other type of gig. And they're like, well, if it's not paying me, like my personal time is paying me, I'm not going to it. I respect it for sure. Like it's not necessarily my style because I'm a giver, but I got into a lot of trouble over delivering and over giving to places that just mostly people that didn't value what I was bringing to the table. And not that I was doing it for them. I'm doing it because that's my work ethic. That's my desire to be a part of a system and to nurture it. But I've seen myself get in trouble doing that because I got burned out. I was frustrated. I felt used, so I don't know. I think it's a unique time because people are evaluating their ethics and their value system like never before in the workplace, because there is no job security like even 20 years ago, much less 40 years ago. So I think it's more of an ethical value conversation right now. And I think people are trying to figure out what do they value. Like you're getting this big check, but you're immediately disposable. What does that mean to me? So I don't know. It's an interesting place in the music industry, and I'm hoping that everybody finds their footing.
Yeah. I mean, I respect young folks, and I kind of gauge like who's who, and I work with what they bring to the table. But like, if there's additional opportunities, I'm not going back to those people that just give. I'm not going back to people that just give a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there has to be, I'm I admire that these young folks get to draw boundaries that I never even thought to draw, right? But at the same time, like, the music industry is still that space where you have to be super proactive and you have to go after shit. And there's a lot of people that want very few spots. And I'm not going to, give one of those spots to somebody that's only giving a little bit. I need the person that's going to go above and beyond, because I feel like that's what I've had to do my whole life. And that's what I want with the people that are working with me. I don't want, to be having a conversation with you, and as soon as 5 o'clock hits, they're like, oh, we can continue this conversation tomorrow. That's wild to me. Like, that's just not, I'll respect it. I'll be like, okay. But in the back of my mind, I'm knowing this isn't the person that, is going to be here very long. So, I do think that young folks need to, have your boundaries, but understand that, if you want additional opportunities, the generations above you had a totally different experience. And I think that's what it's about. Just kind of understanding how other people are viewing you. And then as long as you know that, you can move accordingly. If you feel like, okay, that's a different time, I'm not moving like that, then that's your prerogative. But you need to understand, like, how I feel like I try to understand where young people are coming from, and put myself in their shoes and kind of see where they're coming from and the new challenges that they face that I'd never faced before. But at the same time, like, they should try to do the same thing and understand a little bit of the experience that maybe we came up in, and have maybe just a better meeting of the minds. But especially in this environment where people are getting laid off, if you're not going hard and you're not being proactive and you're not just doing your job, is not enough, right? You got to be coming up with ideas. You got to be coming up with, I know, Erinn, you just had that reaction, but like, to me, you come here, do your job. That's what your paycheck's for. The other opportunities that I'm keeping you in mind for, that's where the extra stuff comes in. You're
I
going to
know.
get paid.
I was just making that face because, one, the statement in and of itself, like, you're not getting paid just to do your job, is kind of, it's wild a little bit. But I get what you're saying.
No, I said no. I said you do your job. That's what you get paid for. Like, but the extra opportunities, the quicker promotions, things outside of that, I feel like you still have to go above and beyond.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that's in any industry. Sans nepotism, which I don't despise, especially with minorities. I think I'm a big proponent of Black nepotism, but you gotta meet the standard though, or surpass the standard. I was making that face because some of the feedback that I was getting, like, on the side, like, I kind of had homies kind of be like, hey, it was like, all of my experience for the most part was as an entrepreneur, and they basically said I was scaring the hoes, so it was like the job market is nervous about somebody who comes in as an entrepreneur, because I'm not, again, kind of what I tweeted a couple weeks ago, like, these people are looking to hire obedient people, not necessarily innovative people. So I think, and this isn't a shot to anybody who works in the corporate space, because I'm not saying everybody always. That's just my assessment of a lot of the label people that I've been working with lately, as I have gotten, more consulting gigs. But I think especially when you're interviewing for a mid-level or approaching senior level position, a lot of them were saying, and then it could just be because also I'm a Black woman, so it reads differently than if I were a man, but they're like, you're not going to be as easy to work with because you may not jump on board with what they're trying to, like the stream that they're trying to do, or you may try to come in and change things. And I'm like, how do y'all get that from an interview? Like, I'm a team player, like I rock with the team. But they said like, oh, well, if you look at your relevant job experience and it's all of you building things, creating things, growing things, they take that and they say, oh, well, if she comes into our system, she may not want to play ball the way that we play ball. So we'll just say we'd rather take a under or a less qualified person or somebody who's already kind of worked within the system than to bring her in. And I don't know that to be fully true. I got that feedback one time from somebody who worked inside of the company who was, putting in a good word for me. And then I also got the feedback from a couple of other friends just who do like headhunting jobs. And they're like, or they have worked as headhunters or evaluated, resumes, and they're like, this is what this would translate to somebody. And I'm like, well, y'all work in super corporate America. I'm applying for a job in the music industry. But then they're like, no, look at this company, look at the parent company, look at the way HR is set up. This is still a very traditional company. They're a music company, but it's still, corporate America or Silicon Valley. So that's why I made that face, because I'm like, I do agree that like the extra ideas and things like that, especially when you're working with a startup, is helpful. But I think I've man, this is gonna sound crazy, but there's a couple situations that happened to me over the last year and a half. I was interviewing for a company that originally wanted to just sponsor this podcast, and then I was like, well, why don't y'all create X, Y, and Z? And they were like, well, can you give us a job description? And I was like, yeah, I think I would be perfect for this. I created a job description. And then they ghosted me. I followed up several times. And then like 2 months later, I saw my job description posted on the internet. And then they hired somebody for actually $10,000 less than what I asked for. And it's like, there's space to negotiate. But you know what I'm saying? So like, I think about things like that. Like I could tell you multiple stories of things like they just cherry picked the knowledge from me. And then they went and hired somebody that I think would be more so like happy to get the role versus the person who created the role, because I feel like they may have wanted to control the situation just a little bit more. So it's unique. My relationship with that company right now, I can't say too much because it will reveal who they are, but it just put a really bad taste in my mouth, and is part of the reason that I felt super used. But that example happened 3 or 4 times since 2021 or 2022, where it was a very similar situation. And then I was like, yeah, I don't really know what to do with this job market at this point.
I think here's a good example of, I think, the way young people approach things. This is an artist example, but I feel like even young professionals approach things this way. So there's an artist that was reached out to open up for a legendary artist in a city, right? But they weren't getting paid what they typically would get paid because they're an opener for this legendary artist. And the artist gets a flyer, and the artist's attitude is like, well, since they're not paying me what I normally get paid, I'm just going to put it in my story. I'm not really going to promote it to all my fans because they don't deserve that. Right? This is a legend. This is a legendary artist, but this artist does have significant following on social media. To me, that's a wild way to, like, to a young person, that makes a lot of sense. Like, oh, they're not paying you. Like, of course, don't promote it that hard because they're not paying you. Your platform's worth more than that. From my perspective, I'm like, hold on. Number one, you should want to promote it heavily to your fans because your fans would want to know that you're now opening for a legendary artist. And to me, the money that you didn't get, that you normally would get, just look at that as an investment into your reputation, as an investment into your brand, as an investment into that relationship. Because you're thinking so short-sighted if you're like being selfish with your platform. Oh, I'm not going to share it with all my fans. Like, let's just say you perform well. The show gets sold out because you brought additional fans to the table. I'm not saying it guarantees you an opportunity next day, but don't you think more opportunities would come from that if you deliver all the way around?
For sure.
And to me, that's just the mindset of a lot of young people these days, whether they're an artist or whether they're working at a company like Two Lost. I'm not taking any shots at anybody at Two Lost if anybody watches this, but like, that's just the mindset. And I'm just like, that's just so backwards. That's so short-sighted of a way to approach things. And if you're continuously doing this over
Yeah.
time, do you know how many opportunities you're wiping off the table? And you don't even know that because nobody's thinking about you for the
Right.
opportunity.
I mean, I see that happen every day just here locally. But in terms of it being an industry wide thing, I was one of the artists too that was just willing to go above and beyond and do anything and whatever. And it's hard to know how to limit yourself when you're in that state. Just because I was doing a lot and going above and beyond for a lot of people. And obviously, law of averages, the majority of the people are going to either just not value your contributions. And then there are the predatory folks, like Erinn was saying. You could create this entire amazing, and that's why I don't fuck with the, hey, let me pick your brain thing. Because it's like, yeah, you don't want to pick my brain. You want me to write you a plan and do this and that you can take and run with. And if you don't, then I wasted my time. If you do, then I just gave you something of value and got nothing in return. So just kind of having experienced so many scenarios in which I went above and beyond and either got nothing or just got burned in the process did change my energy. And I don't know if there's a better way to go about it.
I mean, I could guarantee you that taking the approach of going above and beyond is going to work out in your favor way more than the times you're going to get taken advantage of, right? Because in the process, you're also going to learn. You're also going to learn what to do and what not to do. Like, so I would definitely err on the side of over delivering than, being cautious and worried about doing too much, because people are going to take advantage of you. Like, you'll learn, like I'm not saying you'll protect yourself 100% of the time going forward, but you'll be able to assess earlier when people don't have the right intentions and you'll be able to pull back. But I think the default should be over deliver every single time. That's just the way I approach it, because that's ultimately what I feel like I'm doing here at Two Lost. I promise you, most of the things that I'm doing today, tomorrow, the next day after that are not in my job description. Like, so, and I think looking at it from like the business side, the business owner side, Erinn, like looking at your background, I too would be a little hesitant not to hire you, but I would have a lot more questions about, okay, is this person going to be here? Because, hiring people is expensive, right? So if you have a lot of turnover, to recruit people, to train people, like that's what we have to have in our mind if we're going for a job. Because I feel like Two Lost was probably looking at me like that. Like, is Dame really committed? He's got all this other shit going on. Like, so I was like, okay, let me prove to them I've been here for about a year now, and let them know, yeah, I'm committed. I'm gonna, plant some roots here. And so, but that's something that people with our background that's, more entrepreneurial and have different experiences, we have to communicate that to potential employers that, hey, I do really want this. I'm going to be around, and that's what that's the hurdle we need to get over in interviews.
I definitely understand that. At that point, when I was applying, I was like, F everything I'm doing. I need some stability. I need some peace. I was like looking to move anywhere just to take an office job. Now, and then even when I wrote that job description, it was a role for me to produce events and build community at major festivals and conferences, which is what I already do. You know what I'm saying? So it was essentially just taking what I do, put their brand name on it, and then we run with it. And they gave me a budget, which is why I was like, this would be perfect for me. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And even when they broke it down to me, I understood it to a degree, but it was frustrating for me to be going through all these processes where people were like, you need to apply for this. I'm going to talk to HR for you. And then it's just like, it was just all the back and forth. I was like, I got to get out of this. Like, yeah. And I get it. Cause even now for me, I think what you said is right and it's insightful. Like, you'll learn. It took a long time for me to learn where to pull back and where to give, because I had to deal with a lot of my own personal issues to my trauma, like my desire for people to value me because of the work that I was doing, you know. So it like I had to spend a lot of time in therapy as well. And so even for me now, I'm always kind of like figuring out like, what should I be pushing myself to do more? Like, over the last 7 or 8 months, I've had to really have some serious conversations because I didn't have the desire to push myself at all to over deliver, much less just barely meet it when I'm working with other people. So like, that's something even recently I've been coming out of, like, damn, my standards have lowered a lot because of how traumatic my last year and a half was. You know what I'm saying? So even that is like not letting people take you outside of who you are, what you do, the value that you bring. So yeah, I agree. You will learn. And it's easier to slow a train down than to get one started. So I think for anybody who's listening to this right now, like, yeah, I'm not trying to get nobody everything. Don't be that person, because you're not going to get anywhere thinking like that. If you're playing defense and never know how to play offense, you'll never score. Defense is great, but you still, you know, defense wins games. Big proponent of that. Grew up playing ball. But if you don't know how to handle the ball, if you don't know how to put it through the hoop, then you're never going to really win. So you got to be able to go on the offense and say, nah, I'm going to put the ball in my court. I'm putting this on my back. I'm moving things forward, which is what I do now. It's like, damn, okay, y'all don't want to hire me. Y'all don't want to give me sponsorship funding. I'm going to put this on my back with my team, and we're going to move forward. And ultimately, that's how I got around to like the consulting gigs. Is how I just started getting around to like partnerships with like local municipalities. I'm getting into the nonprofit space. So now I'm tapped in with my music experience to people who really got money. I think the music industry has money. They just get to choose who they want to give it to. Whereas some of these other entities are looking for youth. They're looking for young ideas. They're looking for people to invest in. And we're still here like, come check out my music. And these people were like, well, build a curriculum for this thing. And you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of ways to get money in this industry and adjacent to the industry. So it helped me refine my messaging and the direction that I wanted to go in, for sure. And I got to be honest, I don't want to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week for other people. So that was another thing I had to be honest about. I was like, I probably would have survived for real a year. Like, I would have given, just because I'm committed, I would have given somebody a year. After that, I would have been like, this is some bullshit. Like, I've been by myself so long, doing what I want for so long. I feel like to get into a stream full time where you're telling me I need this, this, and this, where there's not some sort of entrepreneurial pursuit, then I think I would be frustrated. So I had to learn myself in that process anyways.
And it's hard to like act like you would be there for hella long when you know, like, you can. I mean, they're good. There's good actors. There's good interviewers, but it's really it would be hard for me to do that. You know, especially in these major labels. Kind of switching topics a little bit. Like these major labels don't really value our experience. They don't value, because like, you know, I didn't even get to a point where I was interviewing with a major record label. I applied for some stuff, but then I realized like they don't even know what Funk Volume was. Like, Funk Volume's not a positive thing on a resume to most people, because they don't really understand what it took to build that. And that's why I disagree. And I disagree with I think Corey from the Contraband Agency said that now that there's a bunch of layoffs, you know, there's going to be a lot of people that are available to help independent artists. And yeah, there'll be some, but I don't really. Number one, they're going to be expecting payment. So independent artists don't have like these huge budgets to start paying, you know, these people now as consultants. And number two, like, I don't really think these people, a lot of people, there's some, because some people are doing stuff independently and major, but like, they don't know how to work with independent teams. That's not what they've been doing. So it's not going to be this huge influx of people just ready and willing to help independent artists for free or little compensation. These are people that are going to be like, a lot of people are going to be like, damn, like, I'm got to get to another industry where it's more stable. So yeah.
Yeah, this is not the place for stability.
I mean, it can be it stability at like any one spot. Like you develop a skill set to be able to kind of maneuver, build some things on your own. I think it's normal now to kind of have a situation like mine where it's hybrid, where you kind of have, you do your thing at Two Lost, but you're also doing things on the side and in the music business education space, and you kind of gotta be a grinder. Um, and you have to build solid relationships, but that goes back, and it's going to be hard for you to do that if you are only going to post shit in your story and you're not really going to go hard for opportunities. It's going to be hard to build the relationships and the network necessary if you're approaching things like, oh, I'm not giving people all of me, like they don't deserve that, they're not giving me enough money for that, like, so I think the conversation sounded scattered, but it's all connected.
Yeah, I would say if you're an exec, don't be trying to throw parties. If you never thrown parties, that's what I'm starting to see. Everybody's like, man, they're either talking about parties or PR. I'm like, nobody independently is thinking about paying for PR for real, for real. And then the parties, like, I know it looks lit. I know folks are seeing R&B only and all these festivals, but I'm telling you, it's not as easy as you think. It's way more expensive, and it takes a lot to develop longevity, even if you have a couple parties pop off. So young execs, don't think your future is just throwing parties occasionally and you about to be set. This is not that. Like, respect to y'all. If you doing it, do it, but don't get into it and think it's your future. Like, and I'm not even saying that because I'm worried about competition, because I'm not. I'm just saying it's not as easy as you think it is. And I see a lot of people being like, man, I have this really cool party concept. It's like, man, there's nothing new under the sun. I'm developing stuff daily that I think is fire. Like, I got a sold out event happening this week. We have one ticket left, so I know it's going to sell out. And it's like, like, even throwing the event, I'm seeing other events that mirror it that were kind of coming around the same time. I'm like, damn, it's just like, people, if you're on the wave, you're on the wave. So, like, don't think that that's going to save you either. Like, think about your translatable skills, like Dame said, and like, what industry can you move to? How can you be adjacent to music? But party throwing is the equivalent of somebody being like, I'm going to be a rapper tomorrow. It's like, bro,
Yeah.
Are you?
Last random thing, because I tweeted about it, and again, it's somewhat connected, because like, I'm still down to roll up my sleeves. I do a lot of shit that an entry level person should probably be doing, and I don't mind doing it. But the last thing I want is somebody, number one, expecting it and like forgetting that I have a lot of experience. That like that shit's not gonna fly. Like, when you start, like, I'll help out, like, what do we got to get done? Like, okay, roll up my sleeve, let's get this shit done. But then you start lowering the bar and expecting that to be like my role, then we got to have like a different conversation. So you have to be mindful, because I still take the over deliver approach, but you got to be, you got to check people sometimes and just let people know, like, okay, yeah, I'll do that, no problem, but if you start to see me as that, then we got to have another conversation.
Yeah, that's one of my worst fears. Appreciate you tuning in. I feel like we've wrapped that conversation up. We wrapped a lot of conversations up today, but alas, a lot of what we do is just steeped in chaos. So it's what we signed up for. And speaking of signing up, sign up for Two Lost. Get 3 free months of premium music distribution to every platform, not just the top platforms, all the platforms. You never know. And it's completely free. Go to twolost.com, type in the code @odds when you sign up. 3 months free. Your music will not get removed, even if you don't want to pay for the really, really, really inexpensive membership. I know a lot of people who have started using Two Lost, not just producers, but recording artists too. So what are you waiting for? It's free. Again, appreciate you. I wanted to let that sink in, so I took a pause. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back same time, same place with another episode. I'm trying to get someone on here as a guest, and it's just hard to coordinate because I'm pretty sure she's doing a bunch of these. I'll talk to you off camera about that, but I'm excited. So hopefully I'm teasing something that could be a really groundbreaking conversation at the level of the Chad Focus episode. So hopefully that goes on. But we thank you either way. Shout out to everyone commenting, watching, etc. Peace.